Welcome to Terrifying Tales, the channel dedicated to bringing you original horror stories. Please support the channel by hitting the like button or leaving a comment. And please consider subscribing to the channel by hitting the subscribe button on the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Prefer to read yourself? A written version of the story is available to read on Substack, and the link's in the description. You Never Know Who's Listening by CJ Knight. CJ was close to his 41st birthday. The only thing he ever published was a selection of his short stories on various platforms in written and audio form. Tonight, he sat once more in front of the dim glow of the computer screen. A laptop that had been his partner from the beginning. A hard drive memory full of broken dreams. Words he believed in, been proud of even. But agents and publishing houses felt differently. The rejection emails remained in an inbox, never cleared out. CJ stared at the blank screen in front of him, sipping at the bit of coffee he always drank when he wrote. The clock in the corner of the screen read 9:10 p.m. The deadline for the horror writing contest was less than 3 hours away. A contest he'd found by chance online. The offered prize was the opportunity he'd dreamed of. A publishing deal with a modest advance. It was a foot in the door, a chance, the feeling that years of writing were worth it. CJ leaned back against the hard wood of the dining chair he used as a desk chair and closed his eyes. Tonight, his mind was blank. No muse whispering nightmares, no hint of that momentum that came and went without warning. Just nothing. He let out a long, exasperated breath, opened his eyes, and took a sip once more from his coffee, to find the cup empty. CJ took the cup to the kitchen behind him and boiled the kettle. On the walk back to his desk, he noticed something. Stacked on the corner beneath a clutter of handwritten notes was an unevenly stacked pile of cards. A deck he'd forgotten he even owned. The faded peach-coloured pattern on the back of the cards was unmistakable. His grandmother's old tarot deck. Growing up, both of his parents had worked. During the school holidays, he stayed with his grandmother. Often she would teach him card games. Some of the poker lessons she'd imparted became staple life skills later. But on rare occasions, his grandmother would forgo an afternoon of spades, clubs, hearts and diamonds and pull the peach-coloured deck down from the cabinet shelf. Whenever she did, she always issued the same warning. These cards are older than both of us put together. It's important we treat them with respect. Never fool around, and never communicate with them out of desperation. In her final year of life, she passed them on to him, and issued her warning one last time when she did. As CJ lifted the cards from the table, the memory of the warning brought a smile to his face. "Sorry, Nana," he whispered. The cards were soft around the worn edges. A feeling of use by many hands. A welcoming feeling, accepting him to join them. He closed his eyes and emptied his mind. His breathing steadied as he shuffled. His fingers tingled as the soft edges of the cards brushed at his fingertips. "All right," he whispered. "Tell me where I'm headed." CJ opened his eyes and decided on a 3-card draw. He laid out the cards in front of him on the desk. The first card was the Fool, a hand holding a rose aloft. "Figures," he whispered. The second card was the Devil, a skull bearing horns. The final card, the 3 of Swords, 3 swords piercing a heart. Well, that's a cheerful draw, isn't it? The hairs on CJ's neck rose. It wasn't fear or the cold. It was the feeling of fingers gently brushing the nape of the neck. He shook the feeling off and stared down at the cards once more. I'm the fool, the dreamer. He thought about his grandmother once more as he stared at the devil. She told him long ago what each card signified. Addiction? CJ shook his head. He lowered his voice. Temptation. He focused his attention on the third card. Maybe sacrifice, he whispered, staring at the pierced heart. If I had the chance, he said aloud, his voice hushed and sharp, I'd do it. I'd give up my soul if that's what it took to make it, to be remembered. He chuckled. His laughter was more bitter than his stale coffee. Not that anyone's listening. The blinking cursor on the laptop screen shifted on its own. CJ slid the chair back from the desk. The cursor moved with intent as the words formed on the screen. Offer heard. Offer accepted. CJ stared at the screen in disbelief. He dropped his head to his hands. I'm dreaming or I'm losing it. He looked up to see the words were still there. The screen went dark as he rushed forward and pressed the power button. The screen switched back on by itself. Power in the house shut off. Darkness enveloped the house, leaving only the computer screen illuminated. The darkness suffocated. The house felt crowded. CJ turned to see a shadow standing in the kitchen. It appeared hollow, not really there. CJ's voice caught in his throat. Fear took hold. But something tugged at him deep inside. A tender feeling that felt fake at the same time, like a stranger offering him candy. He couldn't see a face in the darkness, but he sensed a smile. Who are you? CJ whispered, so faintly he almost never heard his own words. The response came, but the words weren't audible. CJ heard them in his mind. You called. I heard. CJ shook his head. I didn't mean it. But you did, the voice answered excitedly. I didn't think anyone was listening. Most don't, the voice said. You used the cards. You spoke with such intent, CJ, so much desperation. That's what it takes for me to hear. Pages appeared from thin air and floated gently to rest on the keyboard of the laptop. CJ's fingers trembled as he lifted them. Beneath the light of the laptop monitor, he made out a signed publishing contract for his last novel. Pinned to the front was a note. We took a second look after we passed on it. We've changed our mind. CJ's legs almost gave out. Foot in the door, he whispered. A chance. The voice returned to his mind. Wrong. This is no mere chance. You will be famous, revered, remembered. The voice grew excited. Millions will know your name. Hollywood will knock on your door. A single page appeared and drifted to rest on the keyboard. A pen landed on top. CJ picked up the page. It was blank, other than a signature line. Just sign, the voice cooed. Everything you've ever wanted will be yours. CJ glanced back at the tarot cards beside the laptop. They'd changed. The fool held a wilted rose. A smiling skull now sat on the card for the devil, and the heart on the 3 of swords was now pierced by 3 pens. Sign, CJ, the voice whispered. What am I signing? CJ asked. The voice echoed gently in his mind. What you offered me. No more, no less. CJ picked up the pen with shaky fingers and signed. The page left his fingers and floated toward the kitchen. The figure clutched it from the air. Unseen eyes flashed red, and the sound of laughter echoed in CJ's mind. Light flashed as power returned to the house, and the figure was gone. But the publishing contract remained signed, resting on his desk. 1 year later, CJ's novel was the most talked about debut horror in a decade. Reviewers called it a masterpiece. CJ smiled for photographs, he gave interviews, he shook hands. But ever since that night, the night he signed the page in the darkness, things were different. Whenever he sat in front of his laptop, words came quickly, but they weren't his anymore. A voice in his mind fed him the words. CJ's stories were darker than anything he'd previously written, and yet he could not deny that they were brilliant. CJ was a phenomenon. He wrote tirelessly, churning out hit after hit, but he felt empty. The fame brought money, made life comfortable. He always felt undeserving of the fame. The stories, after all, weren't his. He was being told what to write. The figure was always around, lurking in the periphery of his vision, both there and not there, just like the first night. CJ grew reclusive, rarely left his house. He tried to stop writing. Something unseen always urged him back to the keyboard. A nagging addiction. Fans found him, left gifts by the door, sent him letters. He was famous, and that bell could never be unrung. As time marched on, CJ rarely slept. He spent all of his time writing and never left the house. One evening, a journalist came to interview him. She introduced herself as Jude. CJ showed her inside and led her to the lounge room. The journalist smiled. CJ waited for the first question. The voice spoke gently in his mind. "It's time to fulfill your end of the deal, CJ." Jude's eyes took on a red, fiery glow.